About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to spend some time in a beautiful tropical island just up near the equator. White beaches, warm, soft breezes, crystal clear water. It was a beautiful place. 3 children from behind a tall wire fence, begging me to be let out of prison, asking why they were being locked up, even though they hadn't done anything wrong. Asking, even just for 15 minutes, to be able to go and play with the local kids. What could I say? All I could do was try to convince them to give up their protest, go back to the tattered tents, the rusty shipping containers that form their home, back to the mosquitoes, the flies, the snakes and the spiders. I was a support worker on Manus Island, Papua New Guinea, in the Australian government's Offshore Detention Centre, just after it reopened in 2013. And it's fair to say, the experience I had there changed my life forever. I'm still haunted by a lot of the things I saw. But I'm not here today to talk to you about social justice, about international law or human rights. Instead, I want to talk to you about business. I want to talk to you about ways to grow our economy, to make it stronger, to potentially lower taxation, to be able to build better hospitals, better schools, to be able to build better retirement villages, better nursing homes, to be able to provide a better future for our children. And that's why I want to talk about the business of refugees. Why refugees? Why are these two things linked? Well, at the moment, Australia and plenty of countries around the world, we're sitting on top of a massive demographic time bomb. We have an ageing population. People are getting older. It's a fairly natural thing to do. But we're not having nearly as many children as we used to in the past. And that's not just a problem faced by Australia, that's a problem faced by countries all over the world. You might say to yourself, that's okay, Zac, I can live with that, a smaller population, less traffic on the road, shorter queues at the supermarket. Okay, I'll give you that. But when you start to dig a little bit deeper and you start to think a bit more about what a smaller population actually means, you realise that this is a really serious problem. As a population gets older, they require much more expensive healthcare, for example, people to look after older people in those nursing homes and retirement villages. But if you don't have many young people coming up through the population, you have this bulge that's just moving and getting older and older. Who's paying the taxes to fund that healthcare system? Who's working in those retirement villages and those nursing homes? Who's teaching the children that are coming behind them? This is a really significant problem faced by many countries all over the planet. On the one hand, we have this population that's ageing. On the other hand, we have literally millions of refugees around the world looking for a safe place to live. Now think for a minute about what it takes to become a refugee. Places like Australia, when we see images of refugees in the news, it's usually bedraggled people getting off rusty, horrible boats and then being locked up in a detention centre. That's pretty much largely the last part of the journey. Think about the first part of the journey. So you might be sitting in an office somewhere and you might get a message saying all of a sudden that there are people waiting for you in your home and they want to kill you or do harm to you and your family. You realise you have nowhere to go. You can't go home that night. You have to leave with the clothes on your back. Somehow you need to figure out how to get out of that building, how to get out of that suburb, how to get out of that city, how to get out of that country. You might not have any money on you. How do you do that? This is a journey that millions of people take every year. So think about what it requires to be able to successfully make that journey. You need to understand risk. You need to demonstrate ingenuity. You need to use your intelligence. You need to have courage. to be able to make it that far with all those things working against you. So when I think about people like that, being a small business owner myself, I think, you know what? That actually sounds like an ideal employee or an ideal small business owner. Someone who's been through that experience and has shown that they can handle all of those incredible difficulties that are thrown at them. In some ways, they've already passed the ultimate job interview. The experience they've had in the space of a few days, a few weeks, is a lifetime of experience that most other people will never, luckily, you never have. So that's why I'm calling on the Australian government and other governments around the world to significantly increase the intake of refugees. And just to make sure that everybody is clear what I'm saying here, I'm not saying that this would be a nice thing to do. I'm not saying it would be the right thing to do. I'm saying Australia absolutely, positively needs to increase our intake of refugees. You might say, okay, we have a migration program, and that covers the shortfall of younger people being born. And that's true, it does. We probably need more migrants as well. That's a fair point. The only issue with migration, especially the way countries like Australia run their migration programs, it's all about cherry picking. It's about looking at skill shortages, identifying the types of people and the types of experience that you want to bring into your country. And that's fine, there's certainly a place for that. But 10 years ago, when I was back on Manus Island, apart from convincing innocent children that they'd done nothing wrong, even though they had to be locked up in prison indefinitely, I had a chance to meet a whole range of the adult refugees in that camp. We're talking about mathematicians, we're talking about tradies, we're talking about writers, artists, small business owners, taxi drivers, an entire range of skills and experience. And it was all going to waste, just sitting in this remote island, in this horrible facility, with the government telling them that they will never ever make it to Australia. I know from talking to other small business owners in the Blue Mountains in particular, we have skill shortages. It's hard to find staff, especially in a place like the mountains that's not within a huge city necessarily. It's a little bit further out. And I look at the skill shortages that the government produces each year, the list, and I don't see the sorts of skills that we need in places like the Blue Mountains. So that's why the business of refugees is really one of the defining issues of our time. All those skills are just being left to rot in refugee camps and detention centres. The crazy thing about this is that we are effectively punching ourselves in the face right now, metaphorically speaking. We're spending billions and billions of dollars trying to encourage people to have more children. And we're not alone in that regard. It's not working. People are not having more children. That's a very clear demographic trend all across the world. Even in developing countries, that's becoming a significant trend. There's a reason why China is no longer the most populous country in the world, because they're not having nearly enough babies to replace their population. They also tend to accept very few immigrants and refugees as well. And on the other hand, we're spending billions and billions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating here, billions and billions of dollars on offshore detention facilities and onshore detention facilities, all in the name of securing our borders, building walls, sending refugees to Rwanda. It's just madness. So when I think about this, I think there's actually a fairly simple solution to this. Stop spending billions of dollars trying to encourage people to have more children. They're not doing it. Stop spending billions of dollars trying to keep people from coming to Australia, and welcome refugees. Bring in the people who have this incredible life experience, who have this incredible skill set, in order to prop up what will become an ailing, ageing economy, and it's already on the first steps to doing that. There are organisations out there, charities in particular, that do some really interesting work in this area. I'm a member of the Blue Mountains Refugee Support Group, a proud member of that organisation, and they do some incredible things. But there's only so much they can really do. At the end of the day, they're kind of dealing with the pieces that are left over from the traumatic experience that these people have been put through. There are social enterprises, like my own, that advocate for refugees, and hopefully one day we'll get to the point where we can employ refugees as well. But again, that's a very small section of the community. To me, the answer is pretty simple. Small businesses, medium businesses, and large businesses, for-profit businesses, need to push their governments to increase the intake of refugees. Because by doing that, you'll make more money. You'll be able to increase your productivity. You'll be able to fill skill shortages. It's not necessarily about doing the right thing, although I think it is the right thing, but it's about doing the smart thing. A few months ago, I was lucky enough to run a workshop that was organised by the Rural Australians for Refugees organisation, just up the road in Katoomba here. 4 young refugees came up from Melbourne, and I ran the workshop talking to them about their experiences. One of them, a young woman, was training to be a doctor down in Melbourne. Who here can tell me that we need fewer doctors in Australia and fewer nurses? It might be okay if you live in inner city Sydney, but especially if you're living in regional and rural areas of Australia, you're crying out for doctors and nurses. Now, she didn't come to Australia on a skilled visa as a doctor. She came here as a refugee. And in order to give back to her newfound country, her home, she's training to be a doctor, to provide us with the skills that we need. They're the kinds of little hidden gems that you find when you accept refugees into your country. And they're the opportunities that we're missing out on. So I urge all businesses around the world to push their governments to increase the refugee intake. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. It's about building a better future for us and for our children. Thanks for your time.